Hello, blessed people. Welcome to a new episode of The War of Destined. My name is Sol, and I'm here to talk about the first episode of Destined. Something Wicca this way comes again. So sit back and enjoy. Let's start by talking about the episode name. So, as many of you remember, the first episode of Charm was named Something Wicca This Way Comes. And well, I guess there's no surprise here of the why I named the first episode Destined the way I did. It is based, of course, in the first episode of Charm, Something Wicca This Way Come, but this one has two new words, which is again. So yes. So about this episode, there's something curious about it. Is that when I first started writing, I used to do it in Portuguese because that's my, it's not my mother language because my mother language is Spanish. But I moved to Portugal when I was 16, as I mentioned before, and so I started writing in Portuguese because I speak Portuguese, of course. So yeah, it was first written in Portuguese. And then translated to English when I started posting. I think it was probably in episode 19, I believe, when I started writing in English. I did it without even notice what I was doing. Then when I went to post episode 19, I realized that half of it was already in English. So yeah, fun fact. Yeah. Okay, so this episode at first was going to be 2 episodes, and I think I did post it in 2 parts first, but then a few years later when I edit the first season, I made 1 episode out of 2, I made it a double episode. It made more sense to me at the time, so yeah, that's why. So another curiosity about this episode, and we are gonna talk about what happens here, but one thing that's curious is that we will only learn about this in season 5. But this episode is connected with one of the events that take place in season 5, which is the big bad of the season. It's behind what happens in this first episode of Destined. So I think if you have read season 1 of Destined, you will find out who I'm talking about. But it's interesting how in season 5 we understand who was behind what happens here. So let's maybe read the synopsis for this episode. So it says, Charm again. After 24 years, the battle between good and evil begins again. This time, it is up to the children of the Charmed Ones to maintain the balance of good over evil. The Charmed Ones' children must implement everything they have learned from the most powerful witches to ever walk the earth in order to keep evil at bay. This was the synopsis, and has any other synopsis for Destined. They are made by my good friend Gillian Lair, and you can find this one and the others in our fandom page. It's Destined, the next generation of the WarrenLine.fandom.com. The page is not completely updated, but this is one woman's work, so it takes time, and I have a real life as anybody else, so please understand. But there's a lot of pages there that you can check, so please do. Now let's get back to the first episode of Destined. So if you read the episode, you see that the episode starts with a scene in the underworld where we meet Ayasha and one of the Sender demons for the first time. This was made on purpose because this scene was to I wanted to start the first episode of Destined the same way Charm started season 1, which was well, it's not exactly the same, but if you remember the first episode of Charm, it starts with this guy, Jeremy, killing a witch. And so that I wanted to start the first episode of Destiny with a demon, Jeremy was a warlock, but I wanted to start with the evil guy, so to speak. And then go to those who really matter, who are the Warren descendants. And something curious is that I used to call them the Halliwells. It was Halliwells this, Halliwells that. But over time, I decided to not use the Halliwells that much because the Halliwells are very very limited to those people, and I wanted to make a whole of it, and that's why I now use more the Warrens. It is more embraces the whole Warren descendant. So right now I use the Warren over the Halliwells. The Warrens over the Halliwells. So back to the episode. Yes, we start with Ayasha in the underworld, and then we move to the Halliwell Manor. And here there is another connection to the first episode of Charm, because yes, I didn't want to make a copy of it because that's not the way I work, but I always want to, to call the reader to this kind of connections, for you guys know that this is base or the continuity of Charm, and I want to have these little Easter eggs for you to have this connection between the two shows, between Charm and Destined, because bottom line, Destined was inspired by Charm, so that would be logical. So yeah, so we go back to we go to the Halliwell Manor, and the first person we meet is Prue Halliwell, which is going to be our lead female character. Prue is Phoebe's daughter, and a funny thing about season 1 is that season 1 is it's more about to get to know each one of them, and yeah, so we're gonna get more into each one of them in other seasons, but the first season is basically to meet each one of them, so the first one we get to know is Prue Halliwell when she parks to celebrate Piper's birthday. And then we are inside the Halliwell Manor. We meet Wyatt, Chris, Melinda, Junior, Tamara, Charlotte, Cassandra, and I guess I mentioned everybody, Dora, yeah, for the first time. And yeah, we have a funny scene in the kitchen where we see that Phoebe is cooking. That's something very weird. I can't imagine Phoebe cooking, to be honest, but I thought it was funny to have her doing something out of the ordinary. And then we go back to the main action, and when Wyatt and the others are reunited in the entrance, and Wyatt asks for Prue. That's the first indicator I give about what's going to be their relationship. And I know many of you will have questions about why Wyatt and Prue. They are cousins. Yes, I know they are cousins. And I promise I will do an episode about that. But for now, this is just a hint about what the dynamic between those two are going to be. And yes, I promise I will do an episode based on that, the whole cousins relationship thing. Believe me, it's not as weird as many of you might think. So yeah, let's move on. When Prue arrives, there's something curious about this. The first line she has on the show. And it's where she arrives. She walks into the house and she says, "Sorry, I'm late." This little thing wasn't part of the original episode. When I first wrote this episode, this "Sorry, I'm late" wasn't part of it. It was added later when I edited the episode. And why this? Well, because, you know, in 2011, I believe, there was a show called Once Upon a Time, and I was a fan of the show. And I loved the part where Regina arrives in the middle of Prince Charming and Snow's wedding, and she says, "Sorry, I'm late." And yeah, I was like, okay, I need this because you know, I use that phrase when I'm late to something. It doesn't happen very often because I'm very punctual, but I used to use that phrase. I just love her, you know, and I was a fan of Regina Mills. I think I learned to understood the evil queen more than Snow or Emma or whatever, and that's why I wanted to have that phrase said by Prue in this show, and she's gonna do it again later in episode 16 if I remember correctly. So yeah, and that's just a funny thing about this scene. And then again we move to the kitchen where, oh no, before we have a little moment between Prue and Piper where Piper compares Prue to Auntie Prue, you know, the first Prue we met in Charm, you know, the one of the original Charm ones, and this is funny because I wanted this Prue, you know, the niece, to be similar to the first Prue Halliwell, but not a copy of it. But you know that when people look at her for the first time to see Prue there, you know, I wanted that because I think we were left with so many questions about Prue, you know. It was when Prue died, I think I'm not the only one saying it, but there was a hole, like, you know, that needed to be filled, and we're gonna get back to that in future episodes. But I think that's why I wanted this Prue to be a little bit like that other Prue, you know, like the Prue we met in Charm, the bigger sister. So yeah, that's why I decided to have this, you know, this little moment between Piper and her niece Prue, and it had to be Piper. Honestly, it had to be Piper, because we all know that how much Piper suffered in Charm when Prue died. And then we have we go back to the kitchen where Phoebe is cooking, and Phoebe is cooking lasagna. I gotta say that I choose the lasagna because lasagna is one of my favorite dishes. So yeah, that's just because there's nothing important. Sorry, that's not a big deal. But yeah, and then Phoebe casts a spell. She casts the spell. Which is not a spell created by me. This spell was used a few times in Charm. Let the object of objection become but a dream, as I caused the scene to be unseen. Yeah, you remember that, right? So yeah, because why she uses the spell? Because the lasagna was, burned. And she tried to make the lasagna look perfectly cooked, and that's why she used this spell. And I think many of us, that we could cast spells, especially this one, several times. So heavens, why am I not a witch? And then the action begins when Phoebe brings the lasagna to the dining room, and surprise, surprise, a demon just shows up and breaks a book in the middle of the dining room. And what happens here? And here happens something I never thought I would do, which was killing someone. Of course, I knew I was going to bring this person back, but yeah, it was a bold move because I don't kill them often in Destined, I believe. Yeah, I've killed one or two, maybe. We'll get to that. But yeah, but in this scene, Phoebe ends up dead. Why Phoebe, you might question? Well, that's easy because I wanted Prue to go back in time, and I think Prue would only go back in time to save her mother. It's not like she wouldn't to save Piper or Paige or anyone else. Of course she would, but at this point, Prue never used the ring, the Cupid ring in that way. So she never went back in time. This was going to be the first time. And to trigger that power, let's call it that way, it had to be something that really made her, the bang, okay, this is it. I'm gonna use this to take me back in time to save my mother. So I had to do something really, something like really strong that will make her go back in time, risk her own powers to save her mother. Another funny thing about this scene where the Sender demon attacks is that Prue again is the first person in Destined who vanquishes a demon. But Wyatt is actually the first one to use a power in the whole Destined. And you may think, okay, why these two? It's important, because these two, and along with Chris, they are the three main out of the main. So we have 9 main characters, and out of these 9, we have 3, which are the I don't want to use the word important, but it's like they're the main of the main, as I used to say, to justify this. But yes, Wyatt, Chris, and Prue are the main out of the main. Basically, this is it. So yes, that's why I wanted Prue and Wyatt to be Prue the first killing a demon, and Wyatt the first using a power in Destined. And now this year is over. We move to Act 1, where we see the outcome of what just happened. You know, we see inspectors in the house, and they are trying to justify what happened. And that was a common thing, you know, in Charm. That happened all the time. I remember in season 1, all the times they had to justify their presence in certain places. And season 6, when Inspector Sheridan, I think that was the name, was always after them, you know, and she was suspicious that something, that they were involved in something. So yeah. Then we witnessed a conversation between Piper and Paige, where basically they realize that they are not as strong as before, and they are not as, you know, I wouldn't say powerful, because they are still powerful, but you know, like they have done that for so long, and they admit that they are not the witches they used to be, and this is like, you know, the open door to their children to take over, to do what they are supposed to do, which is continue with the family business. And this is a quote from Supernatural. Yes, I am a fan of Supernatural, indeed. So yes, I wanted to have this conversation between those two. I mean, it could be three, it could be Phoebe as well, but you know, I think Phoebe would be the kind of mother who would let her children to fly alone, you know. And so I don't think Phoebe would be the yeah, of course she would be a chicken when it comes to her girls, but I think she will support them, you know. Now when it comes to Piper, I think Piper will be more careful, and also Paige, you know, because we learn this future, but Paige bound the twins' powers, you know, when they were little. This is a reference to the comics. I decided to use that from the comics. There's not a lot of things that I kept from the comics. I've read the comics, yes. But there's a few things, and we're gonna talk about that future. But this little fact, I choose to keep it, you know, to have the twins' powers bound when they were little girls. So yes. So moving forward. So we have after this conversation between Piper and Paige, we are taken to the attic where Prue and her sisters are trying to find a way to save their mother, and yes, Prue has the brilliant idea to use the Cupid ring to go back in time and save Phoebe, and this is another tie to Forever Charm, when Piper and Paige. Silly me. Piper and Leo decide to use, well, it was mostly Piper, decide to use the ring to go back in time and save Phoebe and Paige. If you remember correctly, they go for, they ask Coop to use the ring, and so they go back in time and they save Paige and Phoebe and the whole magical community. So yes, the Prue deciding to use the Cupid ring to save her mother is a tie to Charm. And we can also see a bit more about Prue, and her personality when she decides that she's ready to do whatever she can to save those who are who really matter to her, especially her mother. And another thing that is mentioned in here is it's something Coop says is he mentions a premonition Phoebe had when Prue was born, and we're gonna talk about this in episode 6 of when I talk about episode 6 of Destined, because but I'm gonna say that yes, Phoebe, when Prue was born, Phoebe had a premonition. Basically, she saw in that premonition how powerful her daughter was going to be. There is more to be said about Prue's birth, but we'll get into that in episode 6. But for now, yes, that there is a reason why Prue is named the way she's named. If you know, if you remember, Prue's full name is Prudence Brianna Jonah Halliwell, and there is a reason for that. It's not just because there is a reason for that. And then yes, we have this situation here. And then we go back to talk with the inspectors and all the stuff, trying to explain what the hell has happened. And then we get to see Chris and Wyatt finding out what Prue is willing to do. Prue wants to go back in time to save her mother, and Wyatt is not willing to leave her alone on that. So at first, of course, they think it's a bad idea. Obviously, every good plan starts being a bad idea, and this is not different. And in here, we have Prue mentioning the time when Chris went back in time to save Wyatt from becoming evil in season 6 of Charm. And let me say about this is that this Chris in Destined is not the same Chris that went back in time to save little Wyatt. Okay, and why is that? Because when Wyatt was safe from becoming evil, the whole timeline, and no, you haven't internet podcast of the Flash, no, this is Destined. But when Wyatt was saved, the whole timeline was, reset. And this sounds a lot like the Flash, but it's the only way I find out to explain this. This Chris never went back in time to save his little brother, because in fact his brother, or bigger brother, never became evil. So he never became evil in Destined. So he never had to go back in time. What happens here, and we'll find more as time goes on, is that Chris, yes, he sometimes has it's I wouldn't call it a memory of it, but it's like pieces that come to him in the form of dreams. But I decide not to get into that much, because like I said, that is not part of this Chris. This Chris never went back in time to save Wyatt, but they are completely aware of what happens. So yes, moving forward, Bottom line, in the middle of this, Wyatt decides to go with Prue, to go with Prue back in time to save Phoebe, and yeah, of course, Chris decides to go with them because he doesn't want to be left behind, you know. And this is also made on purpose. I could have Prue and Wyatt, you know, go back in time alone. Why having the third wheel there, you know? But it had to happen. Chris had to be there because, as I mentioned before, Wyatt, Prue, and Chris are the main out of the main. So Chris had to be part of this, you know. Chris had to go back in time with them and help to solve the whole situation. And so yes. So moving forward, so they do it. They go back in time or forward. And what happens next, it's a tie to the original show, you know. If you remember correctly, in Forever Charm, Piper and Leo go to the future first, where they see themselves in an elderly age, and they see they are playing Scrabble, I believe. And this is a tie to that, you know. Prue, Wyatt, and Chris don't go that forward in time, but they go to the future. And what happens here in this future they go to? They happen to go like 13 years, I remember, or 11, something like that. Let me just confirm, but I think it's 13 years. Yeah, 13 years. They go to 13 years in the future, where they actually meet an older Prue and 4 little girls. And this is an Easter egg. Yes, the 4 little girls are an Easter egg. We don't know who these children are by the time. Only one of them, I believe, says something that hints that that Prue is her mother. Let me check. No, maybe not. Let me just check. Yeah. There's a child here asking to go to Granny's Phoebe house. So yes, we learned that at least one of these girls is Prue's daughter. But there's another 3, and there's actually something that future Prue says when they met her, which is, let me get here. You know, I'm reading the episode at the same time as I'm doing this. Okay, yes, she says like little fibs, and we are left wondering, or maybe some of you were sure that the one who approached future Prue to ask if they could go to Granny Phoebe's house, you were left wondering if that was little Phoebes. Well, at this point you're gonna have to keep reading, but if you have, you probably got an answer, or kinda, to that question, because I don't want to spoil things in case you haven't read the whole show. We are currently in season 6, so but if you remember correctly, by season 4, 4, Prue becomes a mother, and you know that if you have read so far, you know that neither of of Prue daughters. It's called Phoebe. So is this a mistake I made? It isn't. What is it? Why would she call little Phoebes to someone who is not? Well, there's two explanations. The first is that one of the girls could really look like Phoebe and had that name, you know, be called like little Phoebes. Or she is talking to the other girl, the fourth girl. And who that fourth girl is? Well, there's several explanations. She could be anybody. She could be the daughter of one of the others, or also, I don't know, we're gonna have to wait for that. I'm not gonna give that away. You're gonna have to wait for, I don't know, season 7, season 6. I don't know. I can't reveal that now, but I'm gonna leave that hanging in there, you know, so you can wonder what is this little Phoebe about, or little Phoebes actually, about. So yeah, think about it. Send me your ideas. I don't know. I want to hear, you know, about that. So this is an Easter egg. Another Easter egg in this scene is when future Prue calls Wyatt dear. Then she tries to disguise, you know, the thing later, but the damage is already made. So yeah, you know, I think I gave away a lot of things in this episode, and it was clear that Prue and Wyatt would end up together. So yeah, that was another Easter egg in this scene. And then yes, they have the talk. They realize that they went to the future where Prue herself is a mother, and the future Prue tells Prue that she has to think about her mother, but she thinks a little too well about her mother, because they go back, like, I don't know, almost 20 years back in time. Not 20 years, less than 20 years, but yeah, they go, the initial idea was to go back in time like an hour, and they end up going to the future, and they end up going back in time where, you know, it's too back in time, you know. If okay, they could tell them, hey, in Piper's birthday, I don't know how many years from now, this will happen. How would they remember? They wouldn't remember. But this is what happens. They go too back in time, too far back in time, and they meet the younger versions of Piper, Phoebe, and Paige. And in here, there's another mention of the premonition Phoebe had when Prue was born. And as I mentioned before, we're going to talk about that in episode when we talk about episode 6 of the season 1 of Destined. So then in here, there's another moment that it gave me joy to write, which is the kind of the argument between younger Prue and younger Wyatt. You know, they are about like 8-9 years old in here. Yes, Wyatt is about 12 and Prue is about 8 years old. And they have a fight, you know, because Wyatt is always the boss. He's bossing every single day. Oh my god, I can't understand Prue, because I mean, I wouldn't let an older boy to always choose what we're going to play, you know. But yeah, I kind of understand Prue and understand Wyatt. So this scene was a joy for me to write, because, you know, so sweet, and it gives away the way they were when they were kids. You know, this dynamic between them. It's what is now. Now, by the time season 1 happens, they are, you know, Wyatt is the eldest son, and Prue is the eldest daughter, and so they are the elders, you know, and they always want. He's the eldest boy, she's the eldest girl, and they have this similarity, you know. They both want to boss around you. They want to dictate the rules, and so yes, that's why this happened. And we can see here how is Chris role playing out in the whole thing, you know, because Chris is going to be like the peacemaker, the mediator between those two. So yes. And then another hint about what's going to happen in the future. It's when younger Prue tells adult Prue about the spot they have near the lips. And this is, yes, a tie to charm, of course, but I think it was sweet because it is also a tie with myself. I have a spot near my lips as well. It's not has brown or black has Auntie Prue and this Prue, but I have one there, so I think it was funny to have that connection to the original show in here. And then younger Prue mentions that she dreamed about Wyatt being her Prince Charming. Yes. Who haven't, you know? Who haven't dreamed that Wes Ramsey is Prince Charming? I have. I'm not ashamed to say that. But yeah, now why this? As Destined goes on, we'll find out that Prue used to have premonitions in the form of dreams. So this dream she speaks about is actually a premonition she had. So yes, she saw the future in her dreams, and she was a kid, so what would she know about love and Prince Charming and all that stuff? But she actually saw herself marrying Wyatt. So yes, she dreamed about Wyatt being her Prince Charming when she was a little child. That's sweet. And by this point, we are in Act 4. And what happens here? What happens is that everybody goes to the present, you know. So past, Phoebe, Paige, and Piper go with Prue, Wyatt, and Chris to their present, and they manage to stop the Sender demon before he kills Phoebe. And I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry about that. And yes, so they go to the present to save Phoebe from being killed by this Sender demon. And this time, this demon isn't vanquished. This demon is kept prisoner and is interrogated by none other than Prue herself. But of course, the Sender demon won't reveal who sent him, because Sender demons are loyal to Ayesha, so he would never reveal where who sent him. but they keep looking for it, and they actually end up finding out who sent the demon when Phoebe has a premonition, and she actually sees Ayasha when she touches a page of the Book of Shadows, our beautiful Book of Shadows. And yes, so they see the name Ayasha for the first time in the demon, and they found out that this was not the first time this demon walked on Earth. They found out that this demon was actually vanished a long time ago by one of their ancestors, which is Pamela Busquet. And I can tell you firsthand that this is probably the first time we heard about Pamela Busquet in Destined, but it won't be the last. I think she won't be mentioned again in Destined, but Pamela Busquet will be mentioned in Legacy, the spin-off of Destined, which we are going to speak about later. But she has something to do with one of the characters in Destined. So yes, this is the first time we mention one of the ancestors, which is Pamela Busquet. We know little about this character, so who knows? Maybe we'll hear about her more in the future. Who knows? That's a possibility. You know, the ancestors give a lot of possibilities for us, you know, writers, so for me to create more stories, you know, more stories about the past, and which is interesting, because I really like to go back to the past and have these new stories. So yeah, moving on. We after this scene where they found out about Ayasha, we have someone gaining a whole new power for the first time in Destined. Yeah, we have a lot in this first episode. And yeah, again, Prue is the first one gaining a new power. Why Prue, you might ask? Well, it can be Wyatt, because by this time Wyatt is already powerful. You know, he's the most powerful witch, or being, if you prefer. So I wanted, as everybody knows, Wyatt is a twice blessed witch, and at this point it is not clear yet, but Prue is also a twice blessed witch, and we will talk about that later. But at this point I wanted Prue to gain a new power, because she's also powerful, but it's not as powerful as Wyatt. So I wanted her to gain a new power, you know, and this new power, it was kind of made up by myself. It is called telekinesis molecular combustion, and basically it's like you move something, you made this something blow up as it's being moved. But this is not the first time we see this power. I mean, I gave it name, but we saw it before, or at least I believe it was some sort of that. You can call it advanced telekinesis, okay? And we saw the first Prue Halliwell using this power in that episode where in that season 2 episode of Charm, when they go into the future, you know, when Phoebe is about to be burned at stake. Actually, she gets burned at stake. But we see Prue Halliwell using that power there. You know, it's the same. If you want to picture that power in your mind, that's it. You know, that's the same power. And another funny thing is that Prue is having difficulties, has everybody that gets a new power, she has difficulties controlling the power. So yeah, the one that tries to calm her down, it's Piper herself, because Piper remembers how was when she gained the molecular combustion power, and she was, you all remember how Piper freaked out when she got that power, right? So moving forward, we have a scene with the younger of the Warrens, and this younger person is no other than Cassandra, who is actually Phoebe's younger daughter. And in here we see how Cassandra is discontent of the fact that they have to keep secret about being who they are. They have to keep their magic life in a secret, and that's a feeling that she will carry for at least, I don't know, 4 seasons, maybe 5, 4, yeah, 4. Not just because of the fact that she is that she has to keep her magic a secret, but it's the start of the rebellious phase she has, and then it takes her to a phase where she's where magic kind of blew up her life. Well, we'll get into that, but to say that this is how it started, the fact that she cannot reveal to the world that she's a witch, that she has magic, that her family has saved innocence since 1999. So yes, this is it's not the start, but for us it is, because it's the first episode of Destined. But yes, just to explain what's coming for Cassandra next. So Cassandra gets attacked by another Sender Demon, and this Sender Demon kind of destroys a tree, and when he does, Cassandra it wasn't a demon, it was Prue actually who destroys the tree. If you look at it, Prue was trying to save Cassandra, and well, she sent the demon towards a tree, and the demon blew up, and yeah, that was what caused the tree to burn. And in here, nymphs are mentioned for the first time in Destined, and you probably wonder, and when we will hear of it for a second time. And I don't know honestly if we're gonna hear about nymphs in Destined, at least not yet. But again, I can tell you that we'll hear about them in Legacy, so yes. Funny fact is that this is Cassandra's first demon, a Sender Demon, and yeah, I can tell you that Wyatt, Chris are the more experienced witches of the family, of the next generation at this point, but also Prue, because Prue has gone into hunts with them. But for the others, it's a little bit complicated, because the others are have been kind of protected by the whole hunting things, the whole family business, they haven't gone hunts or on demons vanquishing has Prue, Wyatt, and Chris. But here we have Cassandra's first demon, and then at this time we are, I think, in Act 5 already. No, Act 6. We Phoebe and Prue share a connection moment. No, wait, probably Act 7. Yeah, we already have Act 7. Well, doesn't matter. Prue and Phoebe have a connection, this mother and daughter connection, and when they are kind of reading each other's mind, and this is something that's going to happen in the show. Phoebe and Prue are very united. It's a very strong mother and daughter bond between those two. And in here, it is mentioned for the first time, the Power of 9 spell. The Power of 9 spell, which is going to be used later in this episode, was written by Prue when she was a child, a little girl, and they use this spell to vanquish a doll when they were kids. And when I say they, I mean they, the 9 of them. And of course, at the time, Junior and Cassandra were too little to cast any spell, but they were there, so they were part of it. And so yes, and they vanquished a doll. The doll was the demon. I mean, how many of us haven't played with our dolls, pretending them to be something they are not? They are just dolls. But yeah, I mean, I never pretended any of my dolls were a demon. But okay. And then Prue wrote this diary. This spell in her journal. And fun fact about this journal is that it seems to be something common for Prue in each of her lives, because we'll see that in her past life has I'm not going to say the name, so forget it. I'm not going to say the name, but I can tell you that she kept a journal in one of her past lives. And probably in the others too, but we are not gonna talk about that yet. So this journal she kept, where she wrote the Power of 9, has a triquetra, or triqueta, whatever, painted in the cover. And this is inspired by that journal we saw in the Charm episode Brain Drain, when a version of the Book of Shadows is shown in Piper's Illusion, so yeah, I wanted to tie a knot between those two. So yeah, they finally decide to go to the underworld and to look for this Yasha character and vanquish him once and for all, and use for the first time the Power of 9 spell, and blah blah blah. They do that. They go to the underworld. For most of them, it is the first time down there, so the place obviously looks horrible to them, because yeah, there's no one decorating the whole underworld, and so for many of them, it's actually the first time. And so yeah, Prue, our dear Auntie Prue is also mentioned by Ayasha. You know, if you remember, if you read the episode, you remember that Prue is the first one to go face to face with Ayasha, and he knows who she is. He knows who she is, and this is because Ayasha has the power to read minds, and obviously he has been told of what happened in the time he was banished. So don't think that Ayasha knew about Prue Halliwell just because. No. He knew about her because obviously one of the Sender demons told him about Prue. But yeah, this is going to be a very often reference between this Prue Halliwell, the niece, to that Prue Halliwell, the auntie. So yeah, they finally meet Prue and they fight Ayasha, the 9 of them, against the first evil of this season. And they used the Power of 9 spell. The Power of 9 spell was the first spell I ever wrote. And I don't remember how long it took me, but I don't think it was too long, you know. I think it only took me like, I don't know, 10 minutes or less to create this spell. To be honest, I don't have a scratch of this, so I think it was like, you know, at first I think, yeah, probably. So the spell says this: 9 we are, and the evil to vanquish we want. 9 are here to make this evil no more exist. So they cast this spell, and Ayasha goes bye bye, see you next time, or maybe not. Because, and let's talk about this, you know, when Ayasha is vanquished, he promised to come back. But the fact is that when they use this spell in Ayasha, they are convinced that the spell it's going to vanquish Ayasha for good, not just banish as done before by Pamela Busquet. But the truth is that we are left wondering what really happened, you know. Is Ayasha truly vanquished, or he was just vanished as the last time? Well, my friends, I don't know. I don't know. To be honest, at the time, he was supposed to be vanquished, and I believe he's pretty much vanquished, that he won't come back. But, you know, we are talking about magic. We are talking about a fantastic world where no one stays dead forever, and anyone can die at any moment. So we are left hanging there, you know. I can tell you because I don't know myself. Maybe someday I'll wake up and I decide, okay, let me bring Ayasha back. I have no idea if I'm gonna do that, to be honest. So yeah, that's the end of the action. Then we go back to the Halliwell Manor and celebrate the first vanquishing, you know, the first time they use the Power of 9, and yeah, it's all celebration, and yeah, let's have Piper's birthday, you know, properly. So yeah, and so we before the episode ends, we find Prue, Wyatt, and Chris having a small talk in the porch. And again, this is another scene where I want you all to understand that these 3 characters are the main characters out of the 9, you know. The main of the main, as I mentioned before. And Chris walks inside, and Prue and Wyatt are left in the porch. And again, another hint about these 2 characters. And Wyatt asks her if she really dreamed about him being her Prince Charming, and she denies. And this is a lie. This is a lie, because I can tell you that she really did. She dreamed of Wyatt being her Prince Charming. So yeah, she really had a dream, and she denies. But and he's, you know, like, kind of sad when she tells him that. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting, the dynamic between those two. So if you haven't read the episodes, please do. And then, well, the episode ends in the same way episode 1 of Charm ended all these years ago, with Prue closing the door telekinetically. And I remember yesterday, I mean, when you hear this podcast, it will be like in 2 weeks or something. But I just remember that Charm ended 16 years ago, and it is so present in our lives that the single idea of having the first episode of Destined, or the last episode of every season of Destined, ending without a Prue closing the door telekinetically, it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me, because this is one of the things that have to happen. You know, it's like saying this is the magic of Charm being kept alive, and this is what this is for me. You know, I love Charm. I love the whole show. It's on the top of my favorite shows. Of course, there are other shows that I love, but you know, Charm, it's, you know how Prue needed a trigger to go back in time? Well, Charm was my trigger to write. So yeah, when I say that this is important for me, and everything that I created didn't came out of the blue. No, it is a very thoughtful job, and it takes a lot of research, and I do it because it is important for me. I have a life, like many of you do, but yeah, Destined is important for me because I really love Charm. So yes, this is the end of the first episode of Destined, of the season 1 of Destined, and well, I want to thank you for being in the other end, listening to me. And this episode is so long, my god, but yeah, it's the first. I'll try to keep it short next time, or maybe not, who knows. But again, thank you so much for being there. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope to see you again next time. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and Spotify to get notifications every time a new episode comes out. And well, that's it. Thank you so much for being there, and bless be. See you next time. Bye bye.